Hello, everyone. Welcome to the new episode of Next Creators. Today we have Vandal from DAOrecords. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, Sasha. Appreciate it and excited to be here.
So, what do you focus on these days?
Oh wow, it's quite a cornucopia of things. I feel like I have an apothecary of blockchain and musical potions and ointments and all kinds of things to put together. But yeah, mostly it's been community building and experimentation in the NFT space, as well as with the ideas around social currency, DAOs, and really how to use decentralized technology for, I guess, the purpose that I kind of see it as being used for.
And so, you've been also involved in music for a couple decades, right?
Yeah, correct. I started my musical journey. Well, when I was a kid, I was always pretty interested in music, whether that was writing songs for fun, writing poetry. I was into like breakdancing in the mid '80s, and just generally had a lot of energy as a kid and a lot of creative energy. And that kind of evolved into, I guess, late '80s, early '90s when I fell in love with hip hop music and culture, and I started getting involved and started writing rhymes, and eventually started to learn how to produce using hardware before the software came around. And that, I guess, that was the beginning of my musical journey, and it really just evolved from there with experiences that I had traveling, and a lot of those travels, kind of the stories and experiences that I had in my travels, I kind of put into song format with my first album mostly. But yeah, I guess my journey really began, I would say, in the early '90s with music.
Mhm. And did you decide to become professional musician, or how did you kind of venture on this journey?
It was really just it started as a passion, and I think this is the case with a lot of musicians, right? It's you're passionate about the music that you're doing, and the culture and the community, and just being a part of that, and like all of that in itself was stuff I did with my friends. It was very sort of social elements of hanging out and freestyling and beatboxing and making beats and recording on a 4-track cassette deck that my mom got me. This little, well, it was hers, but she let me use it. And then just kind of like it was never really there wasn't really any intention to to make a career or become a professional musician or performer. It just sort of evolved out of my passion. And then I realized that I could, earn an income and do what I love to do. And at the same time, incorporate those elements into my traveling and an extension of those experiences that I just kind of followed. It's sort of like a path in the jungle where you just kind of like follow it and see where it leads you.
And also, where did you grow up and where did you travel to?
Sure. I was born and raised in Toronto, Canada. I lived pretty much downtown in the city for all my time that I've lived in Toronto. And I guess at a young age, my mom would, bring me on little trips, and we went to, I guess the first trip I remember was to Germany. So, my mom is German and grandparents, so went to visit family in Germany. And then the first sort of real adventure I remember was in Colombia, South America, when I was 9. And, we had friends and family down there, and we went to visit. And I remember that was like a really memorable experience of like horseback riding and in the jungle and climbing trees and just kind of experiencing a different way of life. And from there, I just really fell in love with traveling. We drove down from Toronto to Guatemala during spring break, and then back again. And we traveled through over 4 months in East Africa. When I was 13, I had my birthday on a boat traveling from Zaire to Uganda, and just like some amazing experiences as a kid really kind of gave me the travel bug. So when I got older, I was motivated really to explore and try things out, and I didn't really have sort of any fear. I would go alone, and it didn't matter if I had friends coming with me or not. And it was yeah, that was kind of like my childhood was a combination of all those things, and traveling was definitely a big part of that.
And then once you became a musician and then traveling and being a musician in different countries, how would you compare experiences? Like, how was the music industry different and similar in different geographies?
hmm So initially, it was more of like project oriented and exploration. So I guess I could say I really started pushing forward on the music element in my career and with traveling in 1998, when I was a part of this program that I went to Mauritius and Madagascar. And then while there, I was researching music, meeting local musicians, performing at various events, and just kind of like soaking it all in, and having that experience from the perspective of where I was, and really just seeing how I could input, give my input into that, and share and collaborate with people. And then at the end of that trip, I ended up going to Malaysia, which I had visited, I guess, 2.5, almost 3 years before that, just as a backpacker, right, through Southeast Asia. And I had made a couple of friends there. So when I got there, I was really excited to kind of continue on this path of exploring music and finding out who's doing what, and just trying to connect. And I met some really amazing people who invited me back to perform, and actually like paid for my flight, and I got paid, and I was like, wow, this is great. I can finally start making money on the music. Whereas, in Toronto, it's so competitive that if you're going to open up, like I opened up for a few big artists in Toronto, and you make like $200, right? And it was just like not enough really to survive. But then, realizing these opportunities in Southeast Asia, it really kind of, it was really nice because I realized that much of what I had already done in Toronto, especially within the hip hop scene and the experiences that I had, I was able to bring those experiences with me to Malaysia and share those with the community, the hip hop community over there, and to help it grow, to just kind of provide guidance and connection and collaboration. So that I think was really exciting for me, and that really started my journey from probably 1999 into 2000, and then onward from there. I've mainly been focused on Southeast Asia as an artist. I had a hit song on the radio in Malaysia in 2003 that I had written about KL, which is Kuala Lumpur, the capital of Malaysia. Like I was saying, I would write songs about my experiences traveling, and that was like one of the songs. And it ended up like going number one on the radio, and a music video we shot in KL, and I ended up doing like a whole bunch of shows. I had distribution through EMI records at the time in Malaysia, and it was just kind of like a really sort of exciting period of time for me, as like, wow, like I never expected this to happen, and it just kind of happened. But yeah, it opened up a lot of doors, and very grateful for all the people I've met who've helped me along the way.
And how was your also experience or your friends also experience with music labels? Like what was the main role they played at that time? Especially like sounds like it was around the time when internet was just getting started. So how also their role was changing.
Yeah, I guess my first real experience with the music industry and record labels, and that was probably late 98. early 99, when, my crew in Toronto was called Cryptic Souls Crew. And we were sort of like a trans Canada hip hop collective of like MCs, DJs, graffiti writers, dancers, beatboxers, producers. And we had connected with this Canadian band called Len. So Len was working on their album, and they had done this song called Steal My Sunshine, which was like a big hit. And they got signed to one of the imprints on Sony. I think it might have been DreamWorks, Sony DreamWorks at the time. And they got a $500,000 advance. And they wanted to get Cryptic Souls, my crew, on their album. So they did a song called Cryptic Souls Crew, and that was on the Len album. I think it was called Can't Stop the Bum Rush. And yeah, so that was sort of like my first introduction. There were like 12 MCs on that one song. We all had like 4 bars each, and it was sort of this old school kind of vibe. And I got paid $200 for that. And all of us signed a waiver, like we didn't have any rights to anything. And it turned out that that was the song, aside from Steal My Sunshine, which was their hit. The song that we did ended up being like the second most popular song on the album. The album went gold, and we didn't really see a penny of the royalties from that at all. And there were other things that kind of happened that gave us insight into the dealings of record labels and record companies and management and all that kind of stuff, which was not really the direction I wanted to go at all. I really was focused on more of that independent DIY approach. My first album I produced all myself. It was recorded by a friend of mine, and it was pretty much just me on the whole thing. I think except for one song that I had some of my group members on it. And I produced, I executive produced it. I paid for it. I pressed up the CDs and everything, and did the posters and all that stuff. And so that was sort of more the direction that I was interested in, as opposed to following the music industry direction.
And how did you also get introduced to crypto? When was that?
Yeah. So okay. So it's I guess it all began in like 2015. And seeing an episode of the Kaiser Report with Max Kaiser and Stacy Herbert. They were talking about Bitcoin and blockchain, and it really interested me because coming from a more community centric background, and being involved in various communities, and traveling and sort of getting an understanding about the mainstream industries. And I was never really up on any of the financial stuff. Like growing up, it would never really interested me too much. And then it really kind of sparked something, and I was like, okay, this is like, I want to learn more. And I ended up getting a book. I think it was called the Age of Cryptocurrency, I think. And that was, it must have been the 2015, 2016. And then I got the book, and I was reading the book, but I never really knew how I could get involved, or, I didn't know anybody who knew anything, and it just kind of slid under the radar. And it wasn't until, I guess it was April 2017. And a friend of mine in KL, we were just catching up again. And then he was like, hey, like, do you know about Bitcoin and this stuff? And I was like, yeah, I was reading about it, and, I didn't really know where to get any. And he's like, yeah, well, there's this, this mining thing, and you can invest in it. And I was like, okay, sounds interesting. And I went over to his house. I set up a blockchain.io wallet, and I gave him, I bought half a Bitcoin. At the time, it was $600 US, and I gave him the money. He gave me half a Bitcoin, and there I had my first bit of Bitcoin. And then I invested like half of that into this mining scheme that, of course, ended up being a scam, and I ended up losing my money. And And then I bought a bit more at the time, but I never really like, went all in on it or anything. But yeah, it was probably at that point, May of 2017, when that first major bull run happened. And it was like a wild ride, like full of like FOMO and ICOs and this and that. And I remember buying Ethereum and seeing CryptoKitties and wondering what the hell, like, what is this crazy digital cats like? And then it was like, whoa, this is crazy genius. And the NFTs is like, whoa, it's like so many things you can do with it that really like blew my mind. But I was kind of learning how to trade, learning about the different tokens, learning about ICOs. And in Malaysia, actually, they have a very sort of strong blockchain community. And I ended up meeting the first guy I ever met in the blockchain space was Lon Wong. And Lon was the president of NEM, the NEM Foundation. At the time, he was, I guess, the only real like blockchain cryptocurrency guy in Malaysia who was actually part of a major project that it was headquartered in Malaysia at the time. And then he introduced me to a few other people, and then I got connected with like an event that was happening, and from there it just kind of spiraled.
And when did you encounter first projects on intersection of blockchain and music?
Yeah, so that would be so I guess in the early days, coming from it as a perspective of a creative in the space, I found it very difficult to connect with other creatives because it was mostly either developers, finance people, or just general tech people, right? And I was like wondering, okay, how do I find other creatives like me in this space? And it wasn't until I discovered Steemit, which was a blogging platform on the Steem blockchain. And I started getting really involved with Steemit. I met like people from all around the world, doing hip hop, doing creative stuff. We started some initiatives on Steemit. We had like weekly like activities going on, and we were getting upvotes and earning Steem, and then finally connecting with some of the creative people. And that led me to start this project called Hip Hop the Blockchain, which was an idea of aggregating all of these blockchain projects that creatives could benefit from using. And one of the ones that was part of that was Music Coin. So Music Coin at the time had this UBI model with their token, and we got me and my partner DJ Lethal Skills got really involved in Music Coin, and he would do the production, I would do the rapping, and we'd do songs and release it on Music Coin. And that was sort of the first intersection between blockchain and music that I had found, that got us like really excited about starting to write songs about crypto. Like my first track about crypto was in September 2017. It was called Rap Crypto, and I put that out. I got coverage on like was it CoinDesk or one of these platforms, media platforms, and it was very interesting to then start to collaborate and do songs. I did a song for Zcoin, which is like a privacy coin. I also did a song for LuxTag, which is like provenance for luxury items, physical items on the blockchain. And just like exploring the space, trying to fuse the musical element in performing at blockchain events in Malaysia, trying to organize people through Steemit and Music Coin and create these sort of collectives. But yeah, like the first experience was Music Coin.
Hmm. And like how do you think also about progression since those times, kind of like ICOs, crazy times, to now, where you do parties in like crypto voxels, have your own project, DAOrecords. There are like plenty of other like interesting creator focused projects now. How do you think about the evolution of the space? What's interesting to you now?
Oh man. Yeah, like after Steam got sold to Justin Sun, and everybody would just kind of abandon ship. And then Music Coin also kind of sank because their UBI model, like it wasn't designed right, and there were some issues, with the founder and how they were growing too big to they were like they couldn't scale enough. And then another platform called Tune came out after that, and then after Tune, Emanate started to emerge, and now Emanate is one of the, I guess, one of the major players in the audio streaming blockchain platforms. And it was really, I think, at that point I realized that more of the musicians and creatives were starting to get involved with the projects, and then I guess late 2019, fast forwarding to 2019, I had already discovered DAOs and was really interested in the concept of decentralized governance. And I was like part of DAO Stack with Fest DAO, which Felipe Duarte was doing, and Eric from DAO Stack was like, "Hey, it would be great to do a DAO for music," and I was like, "Yeah, that'd be awesome." And I had already this digital distribution deal from my previous record label. And I thought, okay, what better way to explore this DAO concept than to combine both this traditional digital distribution with potentially blockchain digital distribution, whether that was with Emanate, and then eventually NFTs. And I think that kind of happened all like within a couple of months. And I had discovered crypto art on Twitter because, like in Malaysia, most people were using Facebook and Instagram, right? So I had set up Twitter like back in 2007, whatever, and I used it for a little bit, but I hadn't used Twitter like forever. And I finally got back on Twitter because I realized that's the place where a lot of the blockchain people and the activity is happening. And once I did get back on Twitter, I discovered crypto art. And then I was like, wow, we're here. Like that was like the we're here moment. And then NFTs just came back into the picture again after like my crypto kitties experience of breeding cats and having them. I've got my collection still of 8 cats that I've been holding in my wallet. But yeah, it really wasn't until I discovered crypto art, and I think really the piece that brought me in was one created by Robness, and it was like a pharaoh with a glitch thing, and it was animated, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. Like people are doing really cool stuff with this crypto art. And that was when I asked the question. I was like, okay, well, can we do music? Can we do music NFTs? And at that time there wasn't really anybody that I knew of doing specifically music NFTs. I was looking at ways of how we can include music with NFTs, because I was like, well, okay, it's just art. What do we do, right? And I was talking to this one protocol called Unlock Protocol. And then shortly after conversations with them, Rarible introduced the Unlock feature on Rarible. And I was like, okay, this is it. We put the music file in the Unlock. We sell these exclusive cover art collectibles, and you collect the cover art, and then you can get the music in the Unlock. And that was sort of the first experiment that we did in February of 2020 as our first official DAOrecords NFT.
Nice. And how did the project evolve since then?
Oh wow, it's been really amazing. Like I don't even really know how to put it into words, because it's just been over a year, and we've done so much, and there's been so many innovations in the space, and it's constantly innovating, right? And the thing that I really enjoyed seeing was the input from creatives on the projects, and having this convergence of creatives and developers and tech people coming together to co-create these platforms. And I hadn't seen that before. Usually the platforms are created and then people go and use them, right? And then communities are built around it. But I saw this time it was different. It was like the creators' input into how projects were developed was very important and necessary in a lot of ways, because there was an interest. The technology people liked the fact that the creatives were in there, because it adds the cool factor to everything, right? As soon as you bring creators into the space, the cool factor is there. And a lot of times people want to be associated with the cool stuff. So there were a lot of collaborative efforts done by multiple projects, and I was just like talking to everybody. And I think in the past year, I've talked to more people than probably I've talked to in the past 20 years. Literally, like whether that's artists or people who are developing platforms, or just like just people in general who are interested. It's just been like an um, amazing experience for me personally, to be able to be in a position to talk about these things, because I'm not a tech guy. I'm a music and creative guy, but here I am talking about tech in a way that how it's used by creatives, and then being able to give my input to projects, and eventually with DAOrecords kind of growing our own project in a way that was like, okay, we have full control over this. We can grow at whatever speed we want to grow. There's no pressure. Um, you know, let's experiment and have fun. Let's get back to making music again and not have to worry about, fighting an algorithm and a billion other people releasing songs on Spotify that may not get anywhere. And we can really add value, not only to the platforms in the space, but artists coming in to use these platforms. And that to me was really what I was looking to try and do from the beginning with Steam It and Hip Hop the Blockchain and Music Coin and that and along those lines. So it's super exciting for me to see it all like come into I guess like a more of solid or tangible type of thing now. Although it's still at times, with all the ideas and everything, it's still exciting to explore, innovating, and experimenting.
And it seems like also in the space, it's very important to build communities, right? And you've been like really good at this. How do you approach community building? Like, what does it mean to you? What are the places you think where communities gets to be formed? What does this process look to you?
Yeah, I guess I've really been involved in communities and groups and I guess short term projects for most of my life. So I like talking to people, and I like sharing and coming up with ideas and collaborating. And to me, those are the key factors in having a fun and successful community. And we all can now rally around this technology, as opposed to fight for a record deal or try and get on this paid show and have that sort of more competitive component to a community, where people are, yeah, sure, we're part of the same community, but the opportunities are limited, and we're kind of like fighting for those opportunities. Whereas now we can rally around the technology and work together with the people creating the technology to do something that helps the entire community. And it's sort of like I always kind of go back to this idea that participation is power. And we have as humans, we might not be able to do a lot of things, but when we participate in something, that is our power, right? To be able to participate. And that with this current decentralized economy, participation can be rewarded. Therefore, you have an element of sustainability with communities that we didn't necessarily have before, because before it tended to be more like passion around, say, music, but then there wasn't sort of any financial incentive for people to continue giving without being able to get anything back. So communities tend to fizzle off and die out. And I think the important thing is for me is sharing knowledge, the things that I've learned, and talking to people and being honest and being open and just being like, and as much as I can, answering questions, being available. That I think is an important element to community building, and also just being able to see other people succeed. You know, that makes me happy. If I like throughout the course of my life, creating platforms, for example, in Malaysia, I started this platform called Think You Got Skills, TYGS, which is a hip hop battle series where we create a platform for artists to then come and compete in a friendly manner with each other for prizes and bragging rights and that kind of thing. And it was really about you know giving the platform to artists, encouraging them to take the stage, whether they thought they were good or not, it didn't matter. Just get up there and do it. And then eventually, over the years of doing this event series, which I started in 2009, and then in like around 2012, 2013, some of the artists who had come up through our event series were now like popular artists in Malaysia, like having songs on the radio and signed record deals, and just seeing people succeed from the platform that you've created for the community was very rewarding for me. So it's not necessarily doing it for myself, although that feels good. So I guess I am doing it for myself in a way, right? But really enabling and empowering other people to succeed in what they want to do.
And also, in what way online events play a role in this? Because it seems like you have like never-ending stream of events as well.
Yeah, so that I think the biggest thing that impacted that was COVID. You know, Last year in Malaysia, we were continuing to do the TYGS events. They were physical events. We had just finished doing our last event. I think it was in November, and then I was planning out the next series to do, and then of course COVID hit, and all most of my other work was events work, right? So I was actually out there, and all of that just kind of stopped. And at the same time, I think it must have been, oh, I can't remember if it was like February or March. A group of people invited me to perform in CryptoVoxels, Crypto Wieners. They had a little venue, and they had a stage, and they had all this stuff built, and they were like, come and perform. And I was like, okay. I submitted some songs. They had them up in the audio buttons people could listen to, and I did like a DJ set for them. And it was like my first time in a virtual world. I had seen virtual stuff because my mom was doing Second Life for a long time, and I tried it out, but I never really got into it. So I knew, like about these sort of virtual world environments. But the thing about CryptoVoxels that really got me was the community, the DIY aspect of the community in CryptoVoxels, and it was very sort of relaxed and art oriented and fun. And then I started attending the WIP events, and then what was it like? I had the idea of then to do an event in CryptoVoxels, but I didn't have like a parcel or anything. So I talked to various people in the community, and the first event that we did was in April last year. I think we're kind of on our first anniversary for that, the pop up. And I brought together visual artists with musicians and curated a show, and then we presented it in various parcels across CryptoVoxels, starting with Mintbase. So Mintbase was the HQ, and we used their HQ, and we set up our little thing and had a little gallery, and we did the event. And then it was 5 weeks of that event. And then after that, I think I managed to get my first parcel in CryptoVoxels. But for the second season of the pop-up, Whale Shark had offered us to use one of his parcels, which was obviously a lot bigger and more central location. So we took him up on his offer, and that was where sort of the second season of the pop-up was. And that started, I guess, in August of last year.
Nice. That's awesome. And how do you think this evolving? So starting with, um, audio NFTs market just very, very early, I would say. Then there are DAOs, like essentially I think of them as tools for orienting community around and maybe like building some incentives. Um, so how do you think this will evolve? Seems like there are some components available now, but it feels like and there is a lot of pent up interest, definitely, but it's not quite yet like fully like productized, or maybe not enough experiments happened yet. How do you think this year and next year will kind of play out?
Yeah, it's interesting to have this sort of perspective, and being that it's only been like over a year, to think that people consider me kind of like an OG in the space, which is kind of weird because I don't feel that way at all. But it just so happened to be that I came in like at that point in time where NFTs started to become more popular. We integrated audio into them through Mintbase. Big shout out to Nate and Carolyn for being sort of like the spearheading that and really kickstarting the entrance of musicians into the space, and then seeing the number of projects evolving, especially around NFTs, art, and now more towards music. We're still like really early, but I think in a lot of people's minds they can see sort of the future of how this is going to evolve. And I think it's really a matter of the technology catching up to the ideas. And especially because people think, oh, why can't you just make a platform like and it looks like Apple or like iTunes, or why can't you do something that looks super slick? I'm like, yeah, sure, but we have the whole Web3 element, and integrating wallets and blockchains, and it's not as simple as just making a Web2 style platform and making an app and so on and so forth. So I really think that we're at one of the most exciting times now that we're probably ever going to see in this space. The influx of artists and musicians, the attention and the hype that it's getting with all of the big names jumping in, and it's a little reminiscent of the .com boom in a lot of ways, where you're like, okay, 69 million for an image. Obviously it's Beeple, right? But still, that's a lot of money for for an NFT. And whether or not we're in a bubble, I don't know. This is the question my mom and I often talk about. Is it a bubble? Is it not a bubble? Maybe there are smaller bubbles within the big bubble. Who knows? But all I know is that we're sort of like on the bleeding edge, leading into a real new sort of revolution, and a reimagining of different creative industries, whether that's the traditional art industry with the galleries and this sort of idea of now you can collect secondary sales on pieces that you've created and get sold later on to have a percentage of those royalties was didn't exist previously, right? And the same with music, which you look at music and it's a bit more complex in a lot of ways than simply just like creating digital artwork and then minting it as NFTs. We have like so many components, like royalties, for example, are really important with music and different collaborators, and also extending the secondary sale royalties and the new platforms that are coming up to service music specifically. I think what the main thing I would like to kind of, I guess, convey to anybody who's listening or thinking about getting involved in the space or wanting to build something is, don't take what currently exists and try and build it using this technology. I think you need to think outside of the box. You know, like decent. It's just, in my opinion, it's not going to work. It may work in the short term, but down the road, I don't think it's good. There's longevity to porting over traditional business models, especially the music industry models, and then putting that on chain, right? I think that we need to be more creative in coming up with the solutions that artists need, and to really build out a new music industry ecosystem that is led by and and really influenced by the needs of musicians. And that, I think, is the most important thing moving forward, because we're still like at the beginning of this all. Like, regardless of how much hype is there and NFTs, like, you know, Tom Brady doing NFTs shop now, and, you know, Mark Cuban and like all these other people kind of hopping in, most of the world has no idea what this is. And that's the exciting part, right? Like, we can see what's happening and bubbling into space now, but imagine in 5, 10 years from now what it's going to look like when the next Sean Fanning comes around to really, you know, disrupt things majorly with some idea that everybody later is going to go, oh, I wish I thought of that. You know, like, that's what I'm seeing, is like the next generation of creatives and artists and entrepreneurs and startups are going to really like take this technology to the next level.
What do you think will drive the adoption? Is it because the it seems to me, at least one observation I have, is that art and music are similar in that internet exists for like 25 years or more, but then yet still majority of the revenue is going to either labels or art sales, mostly still happening through offline world, at least pre-COVID, through offline world. So it seems like that artists, musicians were not really able to take advantage of the internet as a technology in a big way. So do you think the biggest kind of driver now for the adoption will be the fact that actually right now the value will accrue to the creators?
Yeah, and that's sort of, I guess, the ethos that brought me into blockchain to begin with. This idea of removing the intermediaries that don't add value, and there are so many, especially in the music industry, and the finance industry as well, right? And this idea of peer to peer and participation is rewarded, and the incentives and all of these things are really, I think, to me, are the drivers, because, you know, musicians are tired of not being able to be compensated for what they think they're worth, whether that's 99 cents an MP3, you know, that Apple decided that was the price of music, or the streaming companies who pay like a fraction of a penny on a stream. And the value, I think, of art and of music has been like crushed to a point where musicians are kind of like, the only way to survive is live shows now, or selling some merch at the live show and Patreon and different things like Kickstarter or whatever. And now we have all of those things combined into some of the platforms and the emerging platforms in this space. So I think it's a no-brainer. Once musicians figure out how to use the tech, they're coming in. Once the tech figures out how to make it easier for people to use, more will come. And I think it's really just a matter of time, to be honest. And it's moving faster than I even anticipated. And that's like within the last month alone, the way that the space is really blown up. In like talking to, major labels who are interested in getting involved but don't know how, or people trying to monetize their IP and their catalogs and like what to do, and there a lot of people are scrambling at the moment, and I guess the FOMO is there really with NFTs, and after being through sort of the first wave, I don't get the FOMO anymore. I'm just like, okay, all right. Let's pace ourselves. Let's really like, approach this in a way where, we're not scrambling around trying to like make deals and lock ourselves into something, but more of like, okay, let's scope the landscape. What did we learn? How can we apply that? And then how can we grow? And for me, rather than the idea of like building this platform and then incentivizing people to come and use the platform, it's more like, okay, let's build the community. Let community members use whatever platforms they want to use, share information, help like promote or retweet or like, and just simple things that we can all do to help bring each other up. And I think that is the strength, for DAO Records, I think, is with the community and with a focus on the community as opposed to, creating a platform for and then doing it the other way around. So I feel this is a good model from my perspective on how to really create something meaningful.
And if you're a musician or a listener, participant, fan, where should you go to learn more about DAO Records?
Yeah, so you can check out DAOrecords.org and DAO Records _ on social media. That's Instagram and Twitter. Most active on Twitter, to be honest. Nowadays, it's kind of flipped the script. Not so active on Facebook or Instagram anymore, but we still do blog posts on Scent. And yeah, and then also don't forget to check out NXM, which is a music guild with Near and CreateBase, awesome community where we've got a lot of different things going on, and we're very interested in building the community that way and leveraging off of the DAO and getting this decentralized governance model, making it accessible to musicians and to artists, and also as a community being able to onboard and educate people about the space in general. I think so those are the places to look out for us.
Cool. Well, thank you for joining today. I think it was a very inspirational conversation.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sasha. Appreciate it.